This is verse 22 of the 7th chapter of the Gospel of John. Jesus, in a conversation with the religious leaders, he's actually accused them of plotting his destruction, which of course brought a retort from the crowd, listening to that, wondering how in the world Jesus could impute such hostile motives to the religious leaders, and yet indeed that is exactly what they were doing. They were plotting to kill him, to do away with him. And apparently it dates back to that event that took place some months earlier, in which Jesus had healed a man on the Sabbath day. This man who was at the pool of Bethsaida, and it took place on the Sabbath, representing a violation of the Sabbath day. And it seems as if that was the triggering event. That's what really launched their rather hostile attitudes toward Jesus, that he was willing to do even a conspicuously miraculous event on the Sabbath day. Now he's back, and these religious leaders are watching him. They see him up in the middle of this Feast of Tabernacles preaching, and yet they still harbor these resentments that they had in their hearts earlier, because in effect what Jesus has done is, in a sense, exposed their own hypocrisy. When he can perform miracles on the Sabbath day, which violates the rules that they've been so exercised over, then it does raise a question about their own level of understanding and so on. Well, that's really the context for this comment that continues now from Jesus' own lips, dia. The preposition can take the genitive, it means through. When it has the accusative, as here, it means on account of or because of. Tuto, the demonstrative pronoun, neuter, singular, accusative. So it's the word that goes along with this preposition. On account of this, mouses, the Greek form of the word Moses. On account of this, Moses, dedoken. This is from didomi, means I give. This happens to be the third person singular, perfect, active indicative. So Moses gave. And the use of the perfect here is a way of saying he gave it in the past, but it continues to have binding effect in the present. To you, who men, this is the second person plural dative pronoun, so Moses gave to you, tain, the accusative article, feminine, peritomain. This is the word for circumcision. It literally means a cutting around. And so Moses gave to you the circumcision. Moses gave it. That, of course, is part of the Mosaic Code. But now a very interesting interjection is put here, which really is at the heart of the whole point Jesus is making. Uk, this is the negation. Hoti, not that. The kai before a rough breather. So not that. Ek, out of, takes the genitive. To, muoseos, not that it was out of Moses. In other words, Moses gave the law of circumcision, but it predated Moses. So we have not out of Moses, it is, esten, third person singular, present active indicative of me, I am. Allah, strong conjunction, ek, tone, pateron, ek again, out of, and then the genitive plural of the article, out of the pateron, fathers, or a way of saying the patriarchs. And so this law of circumcision that was given by Moses actually was given in a way that predated Moses. And then Jesus more or less reaches the whole point of this statement to draw this conclusion. Ek, or akai rather, in sabbato, in Sabbath, during the Sabbath is the idea. Peritemneta, you circumcise. This is the second person plural of the verb for circumcise in Greek. And so on the Sabbath, you circumcise a man. The rule of circumcision that went clear back to the days of Abraham was that it should be performed on the 8th day. And of course, ever so often, the 8th day would land on the Sabbath. And the fact of the matter is, even if it landed on the Sabbath, they would go ahead and circumcise on that day. The point being that there was a ceremonial law that predated the law given by Moses and in fact overruled it. And the point Jesus is driving at is if a mere ceremonial law would overrule the Sabbath, then how much more would an act of mercy, which was exactly what Jesus had performed in the case of the man who was healed beside the pool. And so it's simply a way of showing the duplicity, the hypocrisy of these religious leaders who were getting so juiced up about the fact that Jesus had performed this miracle on the Sabbath, when in fact they themselves would allow a somewhat lesser violation of the Sabbath to take place without any objection from them.